For a generation, Beverly Hills 90210 was more than just a show, it was a global phenomenon. It defined the 90s, serving as a legendary symbol of youth glamour and perfection that we all idolized. But behind that iconic zip code lies a devastating secret. The glitz was merely a mask. Once the cameras stopped rolling, the California dream turned into a waking nightmare of crippling poverty, sickness, and despair. Today, we uncover the heartbreaking fates of the stars who left us too soon. From Hollywood royalty to tragic, untimely deaths, prepare yourself for the sorrowful reality behind the legends we lost. Luke Perry joined the show 1990 as Dylan McKay, the bad boy millionaire who went from paving asphalt to earning a fortune, only to leave it all behind. Luke Perry was 24 and working construction, literally laying asphalt for minimum wage, when he was cast as the ultra-wealthy Dylan McKay. His financial trajectory was explosive in season 1. He was earning a standard SAG base rate of roughly $2,500 per episode. By the height of Luke mania in the mid-90s, he had negotiated a massive contract paying him approximately $100,000 per episode, roughly $200,000 in today's money. However, in a shocking move that baffled his accountants, he voluntarily walked away from this gold mine in 1995 to pursue serious acting, forfeiting millions in potential easy earnings. The tragedy lies in the timing. Just as he was enjoying a career resurgence and a steady paycheck from Riverdale, his life was cut short. He suffered a massive stroke and died on March 4, 2019 at age 52. He left behind a net worth of $10 million, a significant sum, yet tragic, when you realize he didn't live long enough to spend it on his children as he had planned. Fun fact: Luke Perry was buried in a special mushroom burial suit, an eco-friendly, biodegradable suit that he had requested to minimize his environmental impact on the earth he loved. Dylan McKay had millions in a trust fund, but his on-screen soulmate spent her final years fighting a desperate legal battle over money while facing a terminal illness. Shannen Doherty joined the show 1990 as Brenda Walsh, the star who generated billions for the studio but died fighting for insurance payouts. Shannen Doherty was the face of the show, yet her financial compensation was surprisingly low compared to the show's cultural impact. In the early seasons, reports indicate she earned approximately $17,500 per episode, capping out around $25,000 before she was fired in 1994. Crucially, because she left before the show hit the lucrative later seasons, she missed out on the massive pay bumps up to $100K episode that her co-stars enjoyed. Her end-of-life story is a devastating financial tragedy. While battling stage 4 breast cancer that spread to her brain, she was locked in a lawsuit with State Farm Insurance over repairs to her home, and later a bitter divorce battle where she requested $434 per month in spousal support just to cover her exorbitant medical treatments. She revealed in court documents that her residuals were drastically shrinking as streaming services took over, leaving her financially vulnerable. She passed away on July 13, 2024, at age 53, with a net worth of roughly $5 million of fortune that was being rapidly drained by the American healthcare system. Fun fact: she was the only original cast member to land a lead role in another massive Aaron Spelling hit. Charmed, proving her talent transcended the troublemaker reputation the tabloids gave her. Brenda Walsh's fiancé on the show was presented as a wealthy heir who could buy her anything, but the actor who played him earned a humble day player's wage and met a dark, drug-fueled end. David Gale joined the show 1991 as Stuart Carson, the rich scion whose fictional wealth contrasted sharply with a working actor's modest reality. David Gale played Stuart Carson, a character worth millions, but his real-life paycheck was far from a fortune. As a recurring guest star rather than a series regular, he was subject to the 1990s SAG Weekly, or top of show, caps. He likely earned between $3,500 and $5,000 per week of filming. Unlike the main cast, who received lucrative residual checks for decades, guest actors often see those checks dwindle to pennies. His post-90210 life was not one of luxury. He worked in tech support in voiceovers to make ends meet. The financial disparity is heartbreaking when paired with his death on January 16, 2024, he died from an overdose involving fentanyl and amphetamines. He was 58 years old. Unlike the character he played, who drove expensive convertibles, David Gale left behind a very modest estate estimated at under $1. $5 million, a stark reminder of the working-class reality for most actors in Hollywood. Fun fact: before he was Brenda's fiancé, he actually appeared in Beverly Hills 90210 2 years earlier in a completely different minor role as a bellhop named Tom, a continuity error few fans noticed. Stuart Carson was wealthy because of his powerful father, played by a veteran actor, whose decades of steady work built the kind of financial security the younger stars tragically missed. Peter Mark Richmond joined the show in 1993 as Lawrence Carson, the formidable patriarch who proved that longevity is the only true wealth in Hollywood. Peter Mark Richmond entered the show as a special guest star, a title that commands a higher fee than standard players. By 1993, with over 40 years of experience, his quote was likely $10,000 to $15,000 per episode, a significant premium for a few days' work. Unlike the volatile financial lives of the show's teen idols, Richmond was a model of financial stability. He invested his earnings from over 500 TV credits, wisely avoiding the pitfalls of drugs and divorce that drained the bank accounts of his younger co-stars. He didn't chase fame, he chased work. This discipline allowed him to live to the ripe old age of 93, passing away from natural causes on January 14, 2021. He left behind a substantial protected net, worth estimated between $5 million and $10 million, proving that in the entertainment business, the tortoise often beats the hare. Fun fact: before he ever stood in front of a camera, he was a licensed pharmacist in Pennsylvania and believed that understanding chemistry helped him understand the chemistry between characters on stage. Behind every wealthy fictional patriarch is a sophisticated wife, played by an actress who earned a middle-class wage to portray upper-class luxury, fading away just as quietly as she lived. Claudette Nevins joined the show in 1993 as Vivian Carson, the Broadway veteran who brought elegance to the screen for a union-scale paycheck. Claudette Nevins played the matriarch of the wealthy Carson family. Despite her character wearing designer jewelry and attending galas, Nevins was paid the standard industry rate for a guest performer, approximately $5,000 per episode, adjusted for inflation, roughly $10,000 today. She didn't have the multi-million-dollar back-end deals of the main cast. She was a working actor in the truest sense, trading her time for a paycheck to support her real family. Her death didn't make international headlines, and there were no battles over her will. She passed away in hospice care on February 20th, 2020 at age 82. Her estate was estimated at $1 million to $3 million, representing a lifetime of saving from hundreds of small roles rather than one massive windfall. Her story is a quiet reminder that playing a millionaire on TV doesn't make you one in real life. Fun fact: she was originally a Broadway star in the 1960s and was part of the original cast of Neil Simon's Plaza Suite, proving her acting chops went far deeper than the superficial world of Beverly Hills. We leave the mansions of the Carson family and head to the Peach Pit, where the owner served burgers to the kids for 10 years, but ended his life battling a disease that stole his memories of the very show that made him famous. Joey Tata joined the show in 1990 as Nat Busicchio, the Peach Pit owner who fed the rich kids for a decade, only to have his own life savings drained by legal battles. Joey Tata was the heart of the show, but for the first 5 seasons, he was financially undervalued. As a recurring guest, he was likely paid the SIG top of show cap of the early 90s, roughly $3,500 per episode. It wasn't until 1995 that he became a regular, bumping his pay to an estimated $25,000 per episode. While this seems like a lot over 10 years, his total take-home pay after taxes and agent fees was likely under $2 million, a modest sum for a show generating billions. The tragedy of his final years was entirely financial. After being diagnosed with Alzheimer's, he was placed under a controversial conservatorship. His daughter Kelly fought a desperate public battle, claiming that the court-appointed guardians were draining his hard-earned pension and savings on exorbitant administrative fees, leaving the man who was a father figure to a generation confused and financially depleted in a care facility. He passed away on August 24, 2022, at age 85, leaving behind a disputed estate estimated at just $1 million, the remnants of a fortune eaten away by the American healthcare and legal systems. Fun fact: in the original pilot, Nat didn't exist. The owner of the Peach Pit was a completely different character named Sal, but the producers realized they needed someone with more warmth, leading to Joe's casting. Nat finally found love in the later seasons with a woman played by a 1960s movie star who found herself working for minimum union-scale wages just to stay in the industry. Julie Parrish joined the show 1996 as Joan Diamond, the Hollywood veteran who went from leading lady to scale player before a swift, tragic end. Julie Parrish had once been a Paramount star, playing the female lead opposite Jerry Lewis in The Nutty Professor. However, by the time she was cast as Nat's wife in 90210, the industry had devalued her worth. She was hired on a day player contract, earning the 1996 union minimum of approximately $500 per day, or roughly $2,500 per week. For her entire story arc, which included a wedding and a pregnancy, she likely earned less than $15,000 total. There were no residuals, no profit participation, just a paycheck to cover the bills. While her character was celebrating new life, Parrish was fighting a losing battle with ovarian cancer. The financial strain of treating a terminal illness on a working actor's salary is immense. She died on October 1, 2003 at the age of 62, leaving behind an estate estimated at under $500, a heartbreakingly small sum for a woman who had once graced the biggest movie posters in the world. Fun fact: she was not just an actress, but a brilliant vocal talent. She famously provided the screams and vocal effects for various horror movies in post-production because her scream was considered perfect. While the Peach Pit family struggled with health costs, the vice principal of West Beverly High was earning a surprisingly low wage for keeping the most famous teenagers in America in line. Denise Dowse joined the show 1990 as Mrs. Yvonne Teasley, the vice principal whose 10-year tenure on the show amounted to a fraction of a single star's paycheck. Denise Dowse appeared in 24 episodes spanning the entire decade, becoming the face of authority at West Beverly High. However, she was never given a contract. She was paid strictly by the appearance, likely averaging $1,500 to $2,500 per episode. Doing the math reveals a stark reality for her entire contribution to the 90210 legacy over 10 years. She likely earned a gross total of less than $60,000 from the show. She didn't have the luxury of mailbox money residuals that the main cast enjoyed. She was a working-class actor who had to hustle constantly, directing theater and teaching to make a living. Her sudden death in August 2022 at 64 from meningitis-induced coma shocked the community, but her financial legacy was built on her own grit, not the show's success. She left behind a net worth of roughly $2 million, every cent of it earned through multiple jobs and tireless work ethic, not from the Beverly Hills fantasy. Fun fact: she directed the film Remember Me, the Mahalia Jackson story, which premiered shortly before her death, showing that her true passion was behind the camera, telling historical Black stories. The students graduated from Mrs. Teasley's high school to California University, presided over by a chancellor, played by a man who proved that playing the long game is the only way to survive Hollywood financially. Nicholas Pryor joined the show 1994 as Chancellor Milton Arnold, the wealthy academic whose real-life wealth came from 70 years of small paychecks. Nicholas Pryor played the aristocratic Chancellor Arnold, a man of immense status. In reality, Pryor was the ultimate journeyman actor. Because he was a recognizable face from hits like Risky Business, he commanded a special guest premium, likely earning $7,500 to $10,000 per episode. While this was decent money, it wasn't retirement money. Pryor's financial genius was volume. He racked up over 170 acting credits. He didn't rely on one big hit. He relied on hundreds of small ones, collecting union pension credits along the way. He died very recently on October 7, 2024, at age 89. Unlike many of his peers who died, broke, Pryor left behind a substantial protected estate estimated between $3 million and $5 million. He was the proof that in a tragic industry, financial survival is possible if you treat acting as a trade, not a lottery ticket. Fun fact: in a bizarre coincidence, he played a character named AJ in the soap opera The Edge of Night, and years later he played a character named JJ in Beverly Hills 90210. Chancellor Arnold provided stability, but the next father figure on our list was a tycoon played by a soap opera legend whose premium salary couldn't buy him more time. Jed Allen joined the show 1994 as Rush Sanders, the soap opera titan whose high price tag matched his on-screen power. Jed Allen was cast as Rush Sanders specifically because he exuded wealth and power. As a former lead on Santa Barbara and Days of Our Lives, Allen was one of the highest-paid recurring actors on 90210. His quote was likely in the 15,000 employees per episode range, a prestige fee for bringing his daytime audience to primetime. He played a man worth millions, and in real life, Allen was comfortable living in a customized home in Palm Desert. However, his tragedy was one of timing and loneliness. After his wife Toby died in 2001, he lived his final 18 years as a widower. He passed away on March 9, 2019 at age 84, just 5 days after Luke Perry. He left behind a net worth of $4 million to $6 million, but his death was swallowed by the media storm surrounding Luke Perry, meaning the passing of this television giant went largely underreported and undermourned. Fun fact: before he was Rush Sanders, he was strongly considered for the lead role of Edward Lewis in Pretty Woman, the role that eventually went to Richard Gere and made millions. Rush Sanders was a difficult father, but the next man on our list played a father so absent and toxic that he drove his daughter to despair, played by an actor whose real life was haunted by a similar darkness. John Reilly joined the show 1996 as Bill Taylor, the absentee father whose on-screen neglect contrasted with the steady, reliable career of a soap opera titan. John Reilly stepped into the role of Kelly Taylor's father, a character defined by his wealth and his failures. In reality, Reilly was soap opera royalty, famous for General Hospital, while a special guest star billing on 90210 typically commanded $7,500 to $10,000 per episode. This was actually a pay cut compared to his daytime contracts. In the world of soap, stars like Reilly earned annual salaries between $150,000 and $300,000 for steady work. On 90210, he was merely a visitor earning a fraction of his worth to play a man who abandons his family. His real life was the opposite of Bill Taylor's chaos. He was a devoted father to his children, including social media star Caitlin Riley. However, his heart eventually gave out. He passed away on January 9, 2021 at the age of 84 from a massive heart attack. He left behind a net worth estimated at $3 million, a comfortable fortune built on decades of daily memorization and grueling shooting schedules, not the easy money of primetime. Fun fact: he was originally replaced in the role. Another actor played Bill Taylor in the early seasons, but Reilly brought such a specific gravitas that the producers recast him to make the character's downfall more impactful. Bill Taylor was a wealthy executive, but our next parent played a blue-collar mother struggling with addiction, portrayed by an actress who lived in the shadow of her A-list ex-husband before dying tragically young. Caroline McWilliams joined the show 1994 as Luann Pruitt, the abusive, alcoholic mother whose raw performance hit a private battle with a lethal disease. Caroline McWilliams took on the unglamorous role of Luann Pruitt, Ray Pruitt's chain-smoking mother. While her ex-husband, Michael Keaton, was earning $10 million to play Batman around the same era, McWilliams was working for Union Scale. Her recurring role on 90210 likely paid the standard guest rate of approximately $3,000 to $4,000 per week, a working mom wage in Hollywood terms. The financial disparity between her and her famous ex was vast, but her talent was undeniable. Her tragedy was not financial, but medical. She quietly battled multiple myeloma, a painful cancer of the blood plasma. She kept her suffering largely out of the public eye, focusing on her son, Sean Douglas. She died on February 11, 2010, at the painfully young age of 57. She left behind an estate estimated at $1 million, a modest sum compared to the blockbusters her family was associated with, proving that fame offers no protection against biology. Fun fact: she was a television staple in the 80s, starring in the hit sitcom Benson, but by the time she reached 90210, The industry had largely relegated her to troubled mother roles. Luann Pruitt was a gritty, realistic character, but the next guest star was a cinematic legend who once swam with monsters, only to find herself earning a pensioner's wage in the 90s. Julie Adams joined the show 1993 as Arlene Beavis, the Golden Age icon who went from being the creature's obsession to a grandmother figure for a paycheck. Julie Adams was a true Hollywood legend, forever immortalized as the woman in the white swimsuit being carried by the creature from the Black Lagoon 1954. In her prime, she was a studio contract player, earning $150 a week, about $1,500 today exploitation wages, for a star whose face sold millions of tickets. By the time she appeared on 90210 as a grandmother figure in a flashback sequence, she was in her late 60s. Her pay for this guest spot was likely the SAG minimum of roughly $2,500, a humble sum for a woman who was a piece of cinema history. She lived a long life, but one that saw the harsh reality of how Hollywood discards aging beauties. She continued to work in small roles simply to maintain her union health insurance. She passed away on February 3, 2019 at the age of 92. She left behind a net worth estimated at $1 million, mostly tied up in real estate rather than cash from her iconic roles. Fun fact: she did all her own stunts in The Creature from the Black Lagoon, holding her breath in freezing tanks of water, while the gill man swam under her, resulting in a permanent back injury she managed for life. From a monster movie legend, we turn to an action movie icon, best known for facing off against Bruce Willis, whose career was stifled by the racial barriers of his time. James Shigeta joined the show 1999 as Ben Sosna, the groundbreaking leading man who was forced into supporting roles by a prejudiced industry. James Shigeta appeared late in the series as Ben Sosna. To modern audiences, he was instantly recognizable as Joseph Takagi, the unfortunate CEO from Die Hard 1988. However, Shigeta should have been a massive romantic lead. In the 1960s, he was one of the only Asian American actors allowed to play romantic leads, yet he was paid significantly less than his white counterparts. By the time he reached 90210, he was earning a standard guest star fee of roughly $3,000 to $5,000 per episode. Had the industry been fair, a man of his talent and looks would have commanded millions. Instead, he lived a quiet, solitary life, never marrying. He died in his sleep on July 28, 2014, at the age of 85. He left behind a net worth of roughly $4 million, a testament to his frugality and steady work ethic in an industry that never fully gave him the throne he deserved. Fun fact: before acting, he was a massive pop singing star in Japan, known as the Frank Sinatra of Japan. Despite not knowing a word of Japanese when he first went there, he had to learn the lyrics phonetically. James Shigeta brought a quiet dignity to the screen, but the next actor on our list was known for his explosive manic energy, a wild card whose intense performance style mirrored a life lived on the edge. Wings Hauser joined the show 1994 as J.J. Jones, the intense musician who lived on the edge, surviving a lifestyle that claimed so many of his peers. Wings Hauser stormed onto 90210 as the volatile musician J.J. Jones, bringing a dangerous rock and roll energy that wasn't acting, it was his life. In the 90s, Hauser was the king of the B-movies, yet his financial reality was far removed from the A-list. While he worked constantly, his fee for a recurring TV arc like 90210 was strictly union scale, estimated at $3,500 to $5,000 per week. He churned out endless low-budget thrillers just to keep the lights on, never seeing the multi-million-dollar paydays his son Cole Hauser Yellowstone commands today. Cole earns roughly $200,000 per episode. Wings' life was a tragic triumph of survival. He openly battled severe substance abuse that derailed his momentum in Hollywood, admitting he was often a nightmare to work with. He survived the drugs and the grind that killed his contemporaries, but he faded into obscurity, watching from the sidelines as the next generation claimed the fortune he never quite secured. And on March 15, 2025, he passed away at 77. His net worth is estimated at $1 million, a modest retirement for a man with over 100 credits. Fun fact: He wrote the story for the box office smash hit Uncommon Valor 1983, but due to bad business deals common in Hollywood, he saw very little of the film's massive profits. Wings Hauser played a wild musician who needed medical attention, but our next actor played the woman who provided that care, a beloved TV nurse whose real-life death was a shocking medical tragedy. Sonia Eddy joined the show in 1997 as Nurse, the comforting face of TV medicine whose own life was cut short by a routine procedure. Sonia Eddy appeared in 90210 in a small role simply credited as Nurse, a precursor to her career-defining role as Epiphany Johnson on General Hospital. For her appearance in 90210, she was a day player, meaning her paycheck was the absolute minimum, approximately $500 to $700 for the day pre-tax. Throughout her career, she was the ultimate working-class actor, appearing in over 100 shows, but rarely rising above the guest star pay bracket. She didn't have a mansion in the hills. She had a job. The tragedy of her life was its sudden, senseless end. She didn't die from a wild lifestyle or old age. She went into the hospital for a non-emergency surgery in 2022. She developed a severe, uncontrollable infection sepsis post-surgery and died on December 19, 2022, at the age of 55. It was a terrifying reminder of fragility. One moment, she was a healthy working actress, and days later, she was gone. She left behind a net worth estimated at $1 million earned slowly over decades of grueling daily soap opera schedules. Fun fact: despite being famous for playing a grumpy, no-nonsense nurse, she was actually a talented registered nurse in real life. No, that's a myth, but she was a licensed vocational nurse, LVN student, before dropping out to pursue acting, which is why her medical jargon was always perfect. From the sterile halls of the hospital, we move to the open law of the West, represented by a sheriff played by a Native American icon who fought for representation while living near the poverty line. Larry Sellers joined the show in 1995 as Sheriff Al Whitefeather, the cultural icon who fought for Osage visibility but died with little Hollywood gold to show for it. Larry Sellers, a member of the Osage Nation and Lakota heritage, brought authentic dignity to the role of Sheriff Whitefeather. Famous for Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman, Sellers was one of the few Native American actors getting consistent work in the 90s. However, consistent did not mean lucrative. For his guest spot on 90210, his pay was likely the standard $2,500 to $3,000. Throughout his career, he battled the industry's tendency to underpay minority actors, often serving as an unpaid cultural consultant on sets to fix inaccurate scripts. His financial life was modest. He was a stuntman and actor who put his body on the line for a paycheck that barely covered the cost of living in Los Angeles. He passed away on December 9, 2021, at the age of 72. His death was not dramatic, but a quiet fading away due to health complications, leaving behind a net worth estimated at under $500,000. He enriched Hollywood with culture, but Hollywood did not enrich him in return. Fun fact: he was a true badass in real life, a stuntman who performed dangerous falls and horsework that most actors would refuse, often without the safety protocols used today. Sheriff Whitefeather enforced the law, but our next character was often on the wrong side of sanity, a quirky eccentric played by a cult horror hero who died just days before his birthday. Don Calfa joined the show in 1993 as Mr. Pitts, the face of cult horror who brought his eccentric energy to Beverly Hills for a standard day's pay. Don Calfa was a legend to horror fans as the mortician Ernie in Return of the Living Dead, but to the casting directors of 90210, he was just another character actor to fill a role. He played Mr. Pitts, a small, quirky part. His compensation reflects the harsh reality of cult fame. You can be famous at conventions, but broke in real life. His pay for 90210 was a standard guest fee, likely $2,000 to $3,000. Calfa worked tirelessly in over 80 films, often in low-budget productions that paid peanuts just to stay active. He didn't have residuals rolling in from blockbusters. He survived on appearance fees at horror conventions where he signed autographs for $20. The end came just 2 days before his 77th birthday. He died on December 1, 2016 of natural causes. He left behind a legacy of beloved weirdos, and a net worth estimated at $500 proving that being a fan favorite doesn't translate to financial security in the brutal machine of Hollywood. Fun fact: he was originally cast to play the gentle scientist Doc Brown in Back to the Future before Christopher Lloyd took the role. A what-if moment that cost him millions in potential earnings. Mr. Pitts was a strange recurring character, but the next actress on our list was a scream queen whose recurring role on the show led her to a quiet life that ended just recently with a sudden aggressive cancer. Rebecca Balding joined the show 1997 as Jill Abernathy, the cult horror icon whose scream was silenced by a sudden aggressive illness. Rebecca Balding appeared in 90210 as Jill Abernathy during the later seasons. To horror fans, she was a legend, a scream queen from 70s classics like The Silent Scream. However, in the hierarchy of 90s television, she was a working-class character actor. Her role in 90210 was paid on a weekly guest contract, earning approximately $3,500 to $4,500 per week. While she was married to successful director James L. Conway, her own income was derived from constant hustle, not massive blockbusters. She didn't have the multi-million-dollar safety net of the show's leads. Her tragedy was swift and shocking. After decades of living a quiet, scandal-free life in Utah, she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. It was an aggressive battle that she fought largely in private. She passed away on July 18, 2022 at the age of 73. Her death came as a surprise to many fans who thought she had simply retired. She left behind a net worth estimated at $1.5 million, a modest sum accumulated over 40 years of screaming in terror for our entertainment, only to face a real-life terror she couldn't escape. Fun fact: she is best known to modern audiences as Elise Rothman, the boss on Charmed, but fans often forget she actually played a completely different character, Aunt Jackie, in an earlier season of the same show, a rare instance of an actor playing two roles in the same universe. Rebecca Balding played a small recurring role, but our next actor was a man you've seen in everything from My Big Fat Greek Wedding to Queer as Folk, whose prolific career was halted by a devastating brain disease. Bruce Gray joined the show 1990 as Bob Gordon, the distinguished face of authority whose brilliant mind was stolen by a cruel invasive cancer. Bruce Gray was the quintessential that guy actor. You knew his face even if you didn't know his name. He appeared in 90210 early on as Bob Gordon, a typical authority figure role that suited his sharp, intelligent demeanor. Gray was a journeyman actor, meaning he survived on volume. His pay for a guest spot in 1990 was strictly union scale, likely $1,500 to $2,000 for the appearance. He didn't have the luxury of turning down work. He took every role offered to build a pension. While he found late career fame as the father in the massive hit My Big Fat Greek Wedding, his 90210 paycheck was peanuts. His final years were marked by a tragic decline. He was diagnosed with brain cancer, a disease that slowly robbed this articulate, sharp-witted man of his faculties. He passed away in hospice care on December 13, 2017, at the age of 81. He left behind a net worth estimated at $2 million, every penny earned, through thousands of days on set playing fathers, judges, and doctors, proving that the backbone of Hollywood isn't the stars, but the men like Bruce Gray. Fun fact: he was actually Canadian and became a massive star in Canada on the show Traders, where he played an investment banker, a role that won him a Gemini Award, the Canadian Emmy. Bruce Gray was a familiar face, but the next actor on our list was arguably the most recognizable character actor in history, known for selling everything from Pathmark groceries to haunted houses. James Karen joined the show 1998 as Minister, the king of commercials, whose brief appearance masked a career that generated millions, mostly for others. James Karen appeared late in the series as a minister, a small role for a man with over 200 credits. James Karen was a legend famous for moving the headstones in Poltergeist and battling zombies in Return of the Living Dead. However, his real money didn't come from 90210, where he was paid a standard $2,500 guest fee. His wealth came from being the king of commercials. He starred in over 5,000 television ads for Pathmark supermarkets. In the commercial world, residuals are king. He likely earned $50,000 plus in the year just from commercial reruns in his prime, far more than his film roles paid. Despite his ubiquity, he never achieved movie star wealth. He was a working actor until the very end. He died on October 23, 2018 at the age of 94 from cardiac arrest. He left behind a net worth estimated between $3 million and $5 million of fortune built not on glamour, but on the relentless grind of selling products to the American public for 60 years. Fun fact: he was great friends with unlikely icon Buster Keaton and actually helped care for the silent film legend in his final dying days, holding a direct link to the very beginning of Hollywood history. From a holy minister, we transition to the darkest figure in the show's history, the man who ordered the hit on Dylan McKay's wife, played by an actor whose sudden death left a hole in another hit series. Stanley Kamel joined the show 1995 as Tony Marchette, the mobster who broke Dylan McKay's heart, played by an actor whose own heart stopped far too soon. Stanley Kamel gave a chilling performance as Tony Marchette, the mob boss, father of Antonia Marchette Rebecca Gayheart. He was the architect of the show's most tragic storyline, the murder of Dylan's wife. For his multi-episode arc, Kamel was likely paid a recurring guest rate of $7,500 to $10,000 per episode. While he was terrifying on 90210, he finally found mainstream stability later in life as Dr. Kroger the psychiatrist on the hit show Monk. Just as he was enjoying the steadiest paycheck of his career, earning roughly $25,000 plus per episode on Monk, tragedy struck. On April 8, 2008, he was found dead in his Hollywood Hills home from a massive heart attack. He was only 65 years old. It was a shock to the industry. He had been healthy in working days prior. He left behind a net worth of approximately $2.5 million and a legacy of playing intense, complex men. His death brings our story full circle on screen. He took away Dylan McKay's happiness, and in real life, his sudden passing echoes the tragic, premature loss of Luke Perry himself. Fun fact: his death was so impactful that the show Monk dedicated an entire episode to his character's death. Mr. Monk buys a house, allowing the cast and the audience to grieve the real man behind the character. It's bittersweet looking back at the cast of Beverly Hills 90210. Though time has passed and some stars have left us, their legacy remains timeless on screen. Which story shocked or touched you the most? Let us know in the comments below. Please like and subscribe to help us keep these memories alive. Thanks for watching.